Orlando's coaster capital is SeaWorld Orlando, and they just announced their 8th roller coaster that's going to be called Penguin Trek, a brand new family B&M multi-launch coaster that is going to open at the park in spring of 2024. So my biggest question is, will SeaWorld Orlando's next coaster come from B&M as well? I'm going to share my thoughts on that with you very shortly, as well as tell you what I think the park will get in 2025 and 2026. But what's even crazier is Penguin Trek will be the park's 5th B&M coaster, which makes SeaWorld Orlando the only park in the world to build 5 custom-designed B&M coasters. That is just wild. I know Great Adventure has 5 as well, but you also have Green Lantern, which was relocated from Kentucky Kingdom. Not to mention, we have a lot of clones over at that park as well. I'm going to tell you everything that we know as of now about Penguin Trek, as well as tell you my thoughts on the ride, and then later tell you what I think about the future of SeaWorld Orlando and what we can expect the park to add next. Here's a look at the official statement from SeaWorld Orlando. And they're calling this a very unique family-friendly coaster experience to travel through the Antarctic wilderness aboard a snowmobile-styled ride car on an indoor and outdoor track that concludes in the penguin habitat. SeaWorld Orlando is claiming that this coaster is going to become the ultimate family coaster experience, which in my opinion is a pretty bold claim considering we have Big Bear Mountain at Dollywood, and then of course Hagrid's right up the street at Universal. The new coaster is going to feature 2 exhilarating launches and a maze of twists and turns. This unforgettable coaster moves at speeds up to 43 miles an hour across 3,020 feet of track that traverses both indoors and outdoors. But I think the most intriguing aspect of this, at least for me, is the ending. Because as the park goes on to say, what sets this experience apart is going to be the finale of the coaster. Is once you go to the brake run, you're apparently going to be turned into a penguin and you're not going to be able to leave the freezing cold temperatures the rest of the day. Now obviously that's not how the ending's going to be, but that sounds pretty cool. But apparently at the end of the ride on the brake run, you're going to be right next to the penguin encounter exhibit. So while you're waiting there, you're going to be able to look over and see penguins. That's a really cool fact, and I love the fact that SeaWorld is taking the initiative, that SeaWorld Orlando is really adding a lot of the animal aspects with this coaster, something that they've kind of taken a step back from the last few editions with Icebreaker and Pipeline. So I really love that. But most importantly about this coaster that I really appreciate, and it's about time that SeaWorld Orlando builds a true family coaster, is the height requirement. You only have to be 42 inches tall to ride Penguin Trek. That is huge for SeaWorld Orlando, a park that is filled with a bunch of coasters that offer very high height requirements. However, the one negative is there's a max height as well, and that is 77 inches. And in case you're wondering where exactly Penguin Trek is going to be located, it's going to be in this area highlighted here, right in the dab smack center of the park. And I really think that this is a smart move for SeaWorld because the Antarctica area, they put so much money into it back in, I think it opened in 2012, 2013. And sadly, the area really never did much for the park. It kind of felt out of place even. So I really like the fact that they're going to have this roller coaster basically fly all around it, and it's really going to liven up this area of the park. But I assure you, what you're seeing here is going to be pretty much exactly how the ride's going to be in real life. Penguin Trek will become SeaWorld Orlando's 3rd launch coaster, and what's even crazier is the 3rd launch coaster in a row. Icebreaker opened in 2022, and originally was supposed to open in 2020, but thanks to COVID, it got pushed back a few years. And then we all know that Pipeline, the B&M surf coaster, opened up this year, which is pretty crazy to think that SeaWorld Orlando has opened 3 coasters in consecutive years, and these are major coasters that are not cloned. And that is fantastic for the park. And again, I really love that this has a lower height requirement. Now, we cannot talk about Penguin Trek and not bring up the brand new trains that B&M has created for this coaster. And better yet, the restraints, because B&M has developed a lap bar restraint for this coaster. And that is amazing news for anyone riding this, because the ride experience is going to be so comfortable. And another crazy thing to think about is that SeaWorld Orlando has now opened 2 B&M prototype coasters back to back. When's the last time a park has ever done that with B&M? After working at SeaWorld Orlando for 2 years, I've always loved this park, and it's always been one of my favorites. And I really love this fit for SeaWorld Orlando. But the future of the park is what makes me even more excited. I cannot wait to see what they have in store for us in 2025 and 2026. And before I share my thoughts on that with you, if you know anyone planning a trip to SeaWorld Orlando, then this video that I created here will definitely help them learn the park, understand the best things to do, as well as save a lot of time and money just by watching this insider guide to SeaWorld Orlando. And you can find the link for this video in the description of this one. But let's talk future of SeaWorld Orlando, because in 2025, I predict that they're going to be opening up a few flat rides. Now, this is something that the park desperately needs, and we've seen them add new flat rides to SeaWorld San Antonio as well as San Diego. And outside of the coasters, there really isn't any major flat rides at SeaWorld Orlando, and I think they could definitely benefit from a Zamperla Giga Discovery as well as a 250-foot tall Star Flyer. If SeaWorld would add both of these rides in 2025, that would really complement them with their coaster lineup. And then in 2026, I think all eyes will be on Wild Arctic. This massive building is home to one of the best exhibits in the entire park. But sadly, most people don't even know it's there because there's no ride in the building anymore, because the park yanked out their motion simulator a few years ago. And that was a huge move for the park and a great move because that ride was really bad. So I'm a little bit shocked that this B&M family coaster went over in the Antarctica side of the park in that building instead of Wild Arctic, because I just felt like this exhibit really could use a major ride that would exit into the exhibit just like the original Wild Arctic ride once did. However, that is not the case. But I do think that the park's next major coaster will be on this side of the park and will use part of the Wild Arctic building for the load and unloading as well as the maintenance bay for the new coaster. As for what type of coaster, I definitely think that SeaWorld Orlando will be adding a major thrill coaster in 2026. And these 3 coasters that I'm about to mention all have a legitimate shot at opening up at the park that year. With a 15% chance of happening, I think we could see a Mock Rides Extreme Spinner open up at SeaWorld Orlando. I really feel like this type of coaster would do really well for the park and give Florida their first Extreme Spinner, which is great for marketing purposes. And we already know that SeaWorld has worked with Mock Rides in the past, so a ride like this would give SeaWorld Orlando a great coaster that offers potentially launches, inversions, airtime, but throughout the entire layout, you're going to be controlled spinning. A Mock Extreme Spinner would be a huge hit for the park, and I personally think that this would do really good for SeaWorld Orlando, and I hope that this does come true. But there's 2 other coasters that I think have a much better shot, and that would be, with a 40% chance of happening, a B&M Wing Coaster. Could SeaWorld Orlando actually open up a 6th B&M? That is just a crazy thought to even begin with, but they really could, and a B&M Wing Coaster would look fantastic on the skyline, and this could potentially become the best GP coaster in the park. And what I mean by that is that this could easily become the most popular coaster in the park. While you and I probably think it's not the best because Mako or another ride there, a B&M Wing Coaster would give SeaWorld Orlando yet another major coaster that offers inversions as well as some hit or miss elements, and I really would like to see what the park could do with a ride like this. And as for the Wild Arctic location, as you can see here, there are a lot of areas where this coaster could get extended as far as layout wise, so it will not be a small coaster. I mean, it doesn't have to be. This thing can be very large if SeaWorld Orlando was creative enough. Now before I get to the very last prediction, if you already haven't, please give this video a like. That is by far the best way you can help support the channel, and I really do appreciate each one. With a 45% chance of happening, I predict that SeaWorld Orlando's next coaster could offer a beyond vertical drop. And the two manufacturers that are best at this would be Gerstlauer with their Infinity coasters and Mack Rides with their Big Dipper model. I really feel like either one of these type of rides would do really well for SeaWorld Orlando and give the park another coaster that could potentially be over 150 foot tall. But for me, it would be all about that beyond vertical drop into a tunnel that would look really great right here in the center of this midway. Just imagine walking underneath Icebreaker and looking up and seeing the giant vertical drop right there. There are so many cool things that SeaWorld could do with a ride style like this. And I love a Gerstlauer Infinity coaster, and I've yet to ride a Big Dipper because they're overseas, but I've heard great things about them. And we know that Europa Park is about to open their new Big Dipper coaster in 2024, and it looks insane. Again, there's so many different things that these type of rides do that would fit really well for SeaWorld and in this location. But overall, I'm very excited about Penguin Trek. I really feel like this is a huge improvement for the park, and it's going to bring in a lot more people and families to SeaWorld Orlando, one of the best parks in the entire world. With all that being said, what are your thoughts on the ride? What do you think about the future of SeaWorld Orlando, as well as my predictions? Please let me know in the comments, and as always, like my shirt says, always think positive and keep riding coasters.